Friends, today's NRI Samay program from Los Angeles brought to you commercial-free by listeners like you. Your generous donations make possible for us to stay commercial-free, and today's show is pre-recorded. If you have a question for the guest, please send an email to nrisamay@gmail.com. We will follow up with the guest and find the answer for you. Thank you for your support.
Hello everyone, good to see you back here. I'm Srikanth Kocharakota and this is NRI Samay. It's Sunday, October 12th, and you're listening to the weekend edition of NRI Samay. Friends, today we are joined with Kartik Sawhney from Stanford University, California. Brilliant and a bright student, and unfortunately denied a chance to sit for the IIT JEE exam a year back in India. And finally Kartik ended up in Stanford University. Yes, we do identify the deficiencies in the system when we do come across such scenarios. And there might be a bunch of other scenarios like that fall into a similar category and people looking out for help on such issues. I hope the story of Kartik would motivate them, inspire them, and mobilize them to fight for their genuine causes and their respective rights. So time to check now with Kartik how his life and what went wrong with our system and why were we unable to help this jewel of our nation, and how can we all learn from these experiences and help others out there. So Kartik, first of all, congratulations, sir, an immense courage, bravery, and passion towards providing some hope and also reinforcing this mission statement, right? Where there is a will, there is a way. Thank you, Kartik, for joining.
Thank you.
Welcome to the program, Kartik.
Thank you.
Hey,
pleasure.
So super pleasure for us as well. Hey, Kartik, you know what? First of all, how is life at Stanford, Kartik? Generally, when I got my when I was first going for my B.Tech in India, it was just like moving from one town to another town in Andhra Pradesh. Mm-hmm. And now you have moved to a different country, right? So experiencing some homesickness. What's life at Stanford, Kartik, for you?
Well, I would say life at Stanford is pretty amazing. So, of course, my first year when I started off, so the first few months I think were a little tricky because it was a different country, different people, different culture. So acclimating to the new surroundings and the new culture took some time. Mm-hmm. But then I think that now, especially as I'm a sophomore here, so it's more like a second home basically. I've made friends, and there are so many connections now. And then of course you have so many resources to help you out with everything, potentially everything that you might need. So many opportunities, outstanding faculty members. So it's just amazing. I'm also involved in a couple of student groups. So I don't know how time passes by, and actually, to be honest with you, it leaves very little time to actually even think about family back home. Sometimes it so happens that I even just do not have enough time to call my parents for a week or something. So it's just amazing. So we call it something in the Stanford bubble, that you're so absorbed in what you're doing here that you do not even think about the world outside. It's really amazing. I just love it.
Awesome. I know that a lot of listeners, when they come to this show, will be curious to know why a differently abled student, a bright student, was denied to sit for an IIT JEE exam. But I wanted to run through a few of the experiences as well. Kartik, you know what? Last week, I should confess, I missed meeting you at Stanford University. I was at Stanford with Super 30 Anand Kumarji. He's a renowned teacher.
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah. I was planning to attend the event, but it so turned out that I had an assignment to turn in the next day and I couldn't.
Oh my God. So, being a renowned teacher from Patna, Bihar, and also when we talk about IIT and how you missed it, it would have been a great connection. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. So, yeah. And, of course, next time he makes it, I'm going to reach out to you for sure. And hopefully Anand would be here sometime later. But yeah. So, Kartik, tell us, how did you get the idea for applying for universities abroad after you were denied sitting for an IIT JEE exam in India? All along, I was applying for universities in India when I was there, so it never crossed my mind to go overseas. What made you, apply for universities abroad, Kartik?
So I never wanted to go abroad. I'll confess that. One reason being that I'd never lived without my parents, without my family, and as it is, parents are really reluctant to send their children as undergrads abroad just because they think that probably they're not yet capable of managing everything on their own. And with me, that was all the more a concern because, how would I manage with my disability? So it actually took me a really long time to convince my parents to allow me to go abroad. And so, so when I was preparing for the IIT exams, the only thing on my mind was that I had to make the IITs no matter what, like every other science student in India.
Right.
But so after I realized that there was no way that I would get reasonable accommodations, that I needed to successfully compete in the JEE exams, and even if I knew answers to the questions, I will not be able to answer them because of the lack of accommodations. I was actually really distressed. I was like, well, this is not happening. And the attitude of the institute right now is such that they're not ready to provide me like a level playing field. Then even if I join that institute, I will have to struggle the next 4 years as far as getting access to my textbooks is concerned, or just the general attitude of people and professors. One thing that I was really sure was that I do not need any sympathy. I just want equal opportunities to compete, and I want to prove myself, and I want to take, like every other student, I want to make the best use of whatever resources come my way in higher education. So considering that, the attitude of the IITs at that point in time, and I was like, I definitely do not want to go there. I would rather change streams, so go into something else, maybe enroll in University of Delhi or something like that. That was my first thought. But then I realized that, I'm so passionate about computer science, and just because of a few disappointing responses from the IIT or from the authorities, I'm not going to change what I want to do in my life. Mm-hmm. So then I actually have an aunt living in California, pretty close to Stanford. So she was in India those days, and she said, why don't you try international admissions? I'm pretty sure that colleges in the U.S. would be a lot more accommodating. And that is when, for the first time, I actually looked up Stanford, MIT, and a couple of other schools in the country. And I was reading through their websites and came across their disability departments. And I was amazed at the kind of support system that they had here. Like, it was just amazing. Everything was provided to you in accessible formats. It was not just about resources, I would really stress here. So in India, what happens generally is that whenever there's this thing about disability accommodations, what you normally get to hear is that, oh, well, we actually lack the resources, and there's no way you can compare us to the U.S. because it's a developed country and we're a developing country, and we do not have those resources. There's no way you can compare. It's not so much about resources, I think, as it is about attitude of the people in general and how much they really want to support you and want to work with you in ensuring that, okay, well, there can be alternate ways of explaining you a concept, or there can be alternate ways of testing you on a topic that is completely visual in nature and hence will be unfair to test you on. So it's just like a matter of devising new ways, being a little innovative, and being more accepting that I think is what really is required. So seeing that attitude in the U.S. And also finally convincing my parents after I think about almost a month and a half or maybe 2 months, when my parents saw that yes, IITs were indeed really discouraging me and I was really depressed, they were actually supportive. They were like, yeah, okay, well, of course we would think that the best option now is to go abroad. Let's try in a few schools. We don't know what's going to happen because these are really competitive schools. So I just just turned in applications. In fact, so we're required to take the SAT exams for undergrad admissions. Right. I did my SATs in December, like a month before the applications were due. So I was really, really late in the game.
Oh, okay.
But nevertheless, I applied to a couple of schools, and then Stanford, one of the schools that I got accepted to, and immediately I accepted the offer because I knew that this is my first preference. One reason being that, of course, it's really close to where my aunt lives, so I have some family support, definitely. But then also, they have an outstanding Office of Accessible Education that caters to their students with disabilities. And then, of course, Stanford CS. So, that was a natural choice for me to make. Right.
I can imagine.
Yeah, here I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so happy you've got into a place where you have support systems and also, you're doing good. So that's first thing that I want to listen. And also you mentioned about sympathy factor. For all the listeners, I know somebody would have to say, you would have to sympathize with all those people who would, shower some sort of sympathy, because you've proved that, far beyond anyone else, more than anyone else, that there is a sense of, going any extent to get things done. So I don't think that's necessary. You also mentioned that, the support streams and structures are very intact here. It's been they've been working on such advocacies, and also that sort of awareness is definitely seen here. I've seen a bunch of other places where I've identified such things. So Kartik, certainly being differently abled, right? So it's not going to be easy to settle down in a place, in a separate country, far beyond living without your parents here and their support. So how do you help yourselves, Kartik? What are the different support streams that helps you make you independent of yourselves here?
So one thing that I would say is I don't really know how it would have been when I'm not in a university, because things would be really different then. But especially that I'm here and I have like a bunch of friends with me, and a bunch of other people like staff, residential staff, and other people to always help you out whenever you need them. I think it's a lot different. Like if I ever run into issues, I can definitely count on people to help me out. And also I think I've really grown in terms of independence. I had so many issues traveling alone in India, especially because of the roads and traffic and those stray animals everywhere. That really makes things really complicated. But here, obviously, such is not the case. Also, there are a couple of so technology is immense here. I use a GPS application that provides me precise directions to where I need to go, to the extent that it actually tells me that, okay, your destination is at 2 o'clock with respect to where you're standing right now. So I have a very, very good intuition of where it might be with respect to where I'm standing spatially. So all of that is really good. Apart from that, of course, Stanford's OAE, the Office of Accessible Education, as I mentioned, has an outstanding program in place. So they recently introduced an automated system where you can convert inaccessible files into more accessible files for you to read without even sending them an email or asking them to do it for you. Apart from that, of course, you send them an accessible document or anything, and they'll get back to you within in the same day, no matter what. So the turnaround time is really amazing. I remember once there was this examination that I was supposed to take, and it was my fault. I actually totally forgot about informing the OAE ahead of time that there would be an examination. And I emailed them maybe I think 2 hours before the examination, oh, I have an exam, and I forgot to inform you. And immediately they contact the professor, they procure a copy of the exam, and they convert it into accessible formats. And I actually started my exam at the same time as others did. So it's pretty amazing the kind of work they do. Also, they maintain a disability golf cart service. So if there's anywhere they need to go on campus, and since Stanford campus is really big, as you would know, it's really hard to walk wherever you need to go, and you definitely need to have some kind of some kind of a way to go to the more distant places. Right. And so they have a golf cart service that you can use. You can just schedule a ride, and they'll take you from wherever you need to go to your destination. They also have they pretty much cover the entire duration. So this service runs from I think 8:15 to 9 p.m., 8:15 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then 9 p.m. they start another service just to ensure that if you have to go to office hours late at night or somewhere, you are not stranded. Right. Wonderful. And Kartik, one thing is that I just wanted to get a feel of what happens at your end. I sent you an email requesting an interview, to schedule an interview. I get a response right in few seconds. What do you do, Kartik? I was just wondering, how do you do that? So I use a software known as Screen Reader. So Screen Reader is basically an application that picks up whatever is there on the monitor and converts that into speech. So
what's it called?
So I use one that's called JAWS, Job Access with Speech. It's developed by an American company. It's called Freedom Scientific. So what it does is even if your cursor is on the desktop or something, and you're navigating the desktop, or for that matter, I am browsing the web. it'll actually read out the entire thing. So for instance, it'll say, oh, Google, link, web, link images, link maps, link whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then whichever I want to do, I can just use the keyboard commands that I know to easily navigate that. And since I've been using it for quite a while, it's really intuitive now.
Wow.
So in fact, like, so if you listen to my screen reader, you will actually not be able to make out anything because I've increased the speed to such an extent that probably only I or a few other people can understand what it's saying. So yeah, that is what I generally use to work on the computer and also to program or whatever.
Wonderful. And it was just in a few seconds, I was like, what? Am I reading it right, or what is happening here? So, because generally when I request for interviews, it takes a little time for people to respond. I was so happy seeing your response. Thank you so much, Kartik, once again.
Pleasure.
And Kartik, let me ask you this, students who are differently able, does Stanford University have a bunch of them, Kartik?
So actually, in America, disabled encompasses a very wide spectrum. So it's not just like people with visible disabilities, but also with invisible disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, a person who might have like a hard time, kind of, learning stuff, but not as much. Like he wouldn't really be classified as intellectually disabled. But then it's just that he maybe there's like certain sort of subjects that he has issues with. For instance, mathematics. Say, even he is counted as a disabled student at Stanford, and I think generally in the U.S. as per their laws.
Mm.
So considering that, yes. If I talk about people with visible disabilities, there aren't those many. So for instance, right now I'm the only blind student on campus, and we of course have a couple low vision students.
Mm. Okay,
so,
got it.
Yeah.
So you've brought about few tools in this process that is making a lot of difference for you, right? So any other tools, devices, and equipments you want to bring up in this interview? Because the whole idea of this is there might be other bright, brilliant students in India who are on the same boat, and your case study would help them flourish, right? So I was just wondering, are there any tools that you're using here that could be used in India and that can enhance the skill of a few other people who are on the same boat that you were earlier, a couple of years back or so?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like, so in fact, so what I'm really doing these days, and also in the past, is that I haven't really lost touch with the Indian organizations working for the disabled.
Mm-hmm.
What I continue to do is whatever new technology that I learn of here or that I know that the office is using here, I make sure to let them know about it.
Wow.
So for instance, like if I give you an example, math, reading math is really a big challenge because if the standard text that a screen reader recognizes currently does not support math, at least as of when we're talking right now. So what they do at Stanford and also what's like the general international standard is that they convert it into MathML, which is like a standard, universal standard to represent math. It's called Math Markup Language.
Like the XML, right? Mm.
Kind of like XML, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is they convert into that. In fact, like even if you have a LaTeX document that most of the people really like composing their math documents, and especially like if you're writing papers or if you're in a university setting, people generally write those composed LaTeX documents. So they get converted into MathML, and then MathML can actually be accessed by a screen reader if you install another plugin that's called Math Player.
Mm.
So, technologies like these really help you out. In fact, when I was in high school, so understanding graphs was really a hard task for me, especially because in India you do not have embossers.
Right.
And, they're really expensive. So, of course, buying them as an individual is solely out of question.
Right.
And so what I actually had to do was rely on others to describe graphs to me. But then the problem with that was that you wouldn't get someone to sit with you all the time and describe graphs whenever you need them to.
Right.
So what I did was, using my programming knowledge at that time, I came up with a software which is similar to actually a commercial software here, but which basically converts a visual graph into the corresponding audio tonal representation.
Oh, wow.
So it uses like musical notes to give you an idea of how a graph would be laid out. If graph is like increasing or decreasing, it will be represented by an increase or a decrease in the frequency of the musical notes to kind of convey to you the monotonicity of the graph, technically speaking. So that is one tool that I developed for myself that I've actually shared with a couple of blind schools and also with a couple of other friends who now pursuing science. One more thing that I've done is so I actually had to type out all of my textbooks while I was in India because generally how it works for print books is that they use scanning softwares, optical character recognition, and that converts it into an electronic format that can be accessed by the screen reader. But that does not quite work for math and science.
Okay.
So what I had to do was every day for approximately 2 hours before even I could start studying, I had to type out over 60, 70 pages of my textbooks so that I could access them later, and I had them in an electronic format. So what I've done is that I've shared my versions of the textbooks, electronic copies, with those schools and those students, so I did not have to do the same effort that I had to put in, when I was there.
Wow.
So yeah, these are some of the few things that I've been doing to kind of help people out and just make sure that it's not as hard for them as it was for me. Also, another thing is that so here I think media actually plays a very important role.
Right.
After I got into Stanford, I also was the All India topper in a special category in the CBSE exams.
Right.
So that was really covered by the media quite a bit. And after that, I actually got an email from IIT Delhi saying we really want to discuss what went wrong and we want to change the systems and stuff like that, which I really appreciate. And I actually happened to meet them, the administrators, and fortunately, next year, like the year after when I was supposed to take it, they actually changed their rules. So this is just a message out to for people who might want to go to the IITs. It's not as bad as it was earlier. They are a little more accommodating. I wouldn't say it's still I wouldn't call it the ideal scenario still because there are a couple of issues, still.
Right.
But it's certainly better. In fact, I know a student who's made it to IIT Jodhpur last year. He's a friend of mine.
Wonderful.
So yeah, it's definitely happening, and it's not totally like
Got it. So things have definitely changed, right? So Kartik, whatever the information that you've given, is there any URL that we can refer to our listeners who can take a look at it? Any good URLs that you think?
There's not a comprehensive place where you get all this information, but then I actually worked on a really long paper. It's more like a manual than a paper, which actually includes how a person who's blind or visually impaired could write math, read math. It's all to do with science, how he could access graphs, how he could do practicals.
Wonderful.
That is available on my Stanford website. So that's stanford.edu/tilde KARTIKS2/. So
Stanford.edu / Stanford.edu.
Stanford.edu /Stanford.edu/KARTIKS2/.
Oh, S2/. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll post it on the YouTube video at the bottom so that people can really realize that. And Kartik, I wanted to bring this up. My 8-year-old has a music teacher in Kurnool, Andhra Pradesh, and she's completely visually impaired. Her name is Lakshmi, and hopefully some of your information might really help her. But she's a brilliant teacher, and I thought this is the apt time that I can share my happiness in having her as my kid's teacher. So it's so awesome to really talk to you as well today.
Sure.
And friends, I'm in conversation with Kartik Sawhney, the country's first ever visually impaired student to have achieved 96% score in science stream of CBSE, scored 99 in computer science, which is his favorite subject, and 95 each in English, mathematics, physics, and chemistry. His total was around 479 out of 500. Unfortunately, was not allowed to, sit for an IIT JEE exam for whatever weird reasons it could be. But then Kartik is now in Stanford, California. I'm in conversation with him. So Kartik, coming back, let's dig the past a bit, okay? Not a happy thing, but let's try doing that so as to get some information and also insights into what we can do, learn for kids out there for future. So I was wondering what sort of these depressing guidelines of IIT JEE or those that denied you a chance to appear for an exam just because you're vision impaired, Kartik? What are those weird reasons?
So I'll actually start this off from a bit earlier. I would start it from grade 10 maybe, when I was actually supposed to choose a stream for me for the rest of my schooling, 11th and 12th. And I was really confident about my choice that it had to be sciences, no matter what. I've been really passionate about it. I was sure I wanted to be a computer scientist. I knew that I loved science. I loved physics. I loved mathematics. I loved chemistry. And unfortunately, at that time, CBSE had this weird rule that a blind student could not pursue science. The only options that we had were either humanities or commerce. And commerce, too, just happened like a few years ago. So before that, it was only humanities. And like, the general consensus was that mostly these people are apt for things, for careers in, say, music or basket weaving. In fact, one of the administrators, of course I wouldn't name him, actually mentioned that to me explicitly, saying that, oh, well, engineering? Are you kidding? That's not possible. So that started off, it took me like almost 9 months to convince the CBSE in the first place to allow me to pursue science in 11th and 12th. Well, that was, I thought that was like a good achievement for me at that time, and everything was set. Well, that was obviously not the case. Got in touch with IIT Madras as early as 2010, because they were the organizing institute at that point. And I wanted to make sure that I actually do this ahead of time so that I do not face any issues. I actually knew that, being the first person, I definitely will run into issues because, these institutes have never thought about it. It'll probably take them a lot of time to come up with new rules and, have those administrative meetings and finalize stuff. So I really wanted to get this started as soon as possible. 2010 started. The first reply that I received from IIT Madras is that, oh yeah, a blind student is not allowed to take the IIT, so we won't accept you no matter what. So that was the first reply. The second reply that I get from IIT Madras, interestingly, through an RTI, was that, yeah, they're fine, we really accept you, but then we think that the paper is set in such a way that you do not require any accommodations whatsoever. And that was a confusing reply, because if I analyze IIT exams from any year, it's kind of like evident that about 35 to 40% of the questions have a diagram in it. Right. And if I cannot see a diagram, there's no way I can answer the question. Well, their claim that the paper is set in such a way that there's no need for accommodation, obviously it's not hold.
Right.
Then in 2011, IIT Kanpur was the organizing institute. Took it a lot with them. Pretty much got the same responses. So there was nothing much that happened in 2011. And 2012, fortunately, it was IIT Delhi that was the organizing institute. And, so I'm based in Delhi, actually. Originally. So it was kind of easy for me to go and meet the administrators and talk to them one-on-one and what I need, why I need, what I can do, and stuff like that. So fortunately, at that year, the director was really understanding and really sensitive, and he after he realized of how I work, and I was capable of potentially making it to the IITs. He was like, I personally will take this issue and will make sure this gets discussed in their joint admission board. And it actually got discussed, and I got some really, really positive decisions that year. 2012, the decisions that came out were that blind students will get extra time to write their examination. Also, what will happen is they will be exempted from questions having diagrams. Of course, that's not the ideal scenario. I wouldn't want that, because then that might potentially be unfair to me or other students, depending upon the difficulty of questions having diagrams vis-a-vis the other questions.
Right.
But at that point, of course, this accommodation is certainly better than no accommodation. So that was another accommodation. The final accommodation was that you're allowed to bring in a writer. So first of all, it was that you won't be allowed to use a computer. Which is understandable to some extent, but then of course there could be ways that they could have thought about this differently, and they could have potentially allowed me to bring in a computer. They could have maybe provided their own computer without any internet access or a spreadsheet or what have you. Right. But they didn't really do that. I mean, but still, that was okay. I mean, no issues. So they provided me a reader and a writer, and that would basically be from science stream class 11. And this is really important because science has a bunch of technical symbols and notations, and it definitely needs someone who is well versed in those symbols to read them out to me. Like, obviously, I wouldn't understand if someone tells me an inverted V or an inverted S or whatever, because I've never seen a V in my life, nor have I seen an S, nor have I seen any other symbol.
Right.
I just know the symbol by its name. I don't know how delta looks like. I just know it's delta. Right. I know how gamma looks like. I don't know how it's actually written in print.
Right.
Because I use a computer.
Right.
So that was something that was good. IIEE, which is IIT JEE's counter, the other exam they organize. What they did, unfortunately, was they're like, so nothing about exemptions, nothing about diagrams. The way you do it is your problem. But, nothing, no accommodations there.
Wow.
And then they said that we'll give you a reader or a writer from class 11, humanities or commerce without mathematics. So the entire purpose gets defeated here because it's certain that the person will not be able to read out the paper to me. To follow that up, I actually went to the director of IIEE. I actually brought along an IIT exam with me, and I'm like, so fortunately he happened to be from a humanities background. I actually asked him to read that paper out to me. And of course, you know how these administrators are. He's like, wait, why are you testing my intelligence? I'm really awesome in whatever I do. This is absolutely rude and stuff like that. And I was like, I apologize if it actually came along like that, but I never wanted to be rude. I'm just telling you, I'm just apprising you of the practical difficulties that I face and I would face if I were to go with these guidelines. And I just want to draw your attention. I just want you to just think about it for a moment, and that's it. Of course, that didn't work out. I actually, so there's something in there called the Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities, which is the role of, his role is basically just to make sure that, there are no grievances and then everything is in accordance with the Persons with Disabilities Act that we have in India.
Right.
And so I reached out to him. He had a hearing where it was decided that IIEE must follow what the IIT is doing. So that was reassuring. One more thing that I would stress, unfortunately, is that the judgments that we get from CCPD office are only recommending. They're not binding. So an organization can very well just can overlook all of those and do whatever they want. Also, another problem was that everybody in India apparently is autonomous. So even if I go to the MHRD and say that, okay, well, ask CBSE or IITs to change, well, the only answers I'm going to get is that, these bodies are autonomous bodies. They make their own rules. There isn't much that we can do.
Wow. So you went to the Ministry of Human Resources. And I thought Kapil was heading the HRD ministry.
Yes, at the time.
Yeah, and he was in Delhi, you are in Delhi. I thought at least, because this is a matter of sensibility and sensitivity, and, essentially a genuine difficulty as well, right? So bottom line is anybody who looks into the case should be able to understand that there is a sense of the difficulty here, and they should move forward with some sort of, reaching out. So you're saying that HRD also lifted their hands on this, is it?
Yes. Well, I mean, they didn't obviously officially tell me that, but then so that was I don't have anything in writing. But then whenever I met someone like a secretary or someone in the HRD, unfortunately I did not get to meet the minister himself. But the only response was that they're autonomous bodies and there isn't much that we can do about it.
Oh man.
Anyway,
and Kartik, it's 3 years of struggle, and you didn't find one who can really pick this up and then bring it to some sort of logical conclusion, making this.
Well, I wouldn't say that because the IIT Delhi director was actually really good, and he actually at least came in with some accommodations. So he was one person who was understanding. The officials at MHRD was really, really sensitive. They immediately understood and could relate to what I was doing and what I was saying, especially if I met some administrator who happened to be from a science background. But that person could immediately appreciate what I'm saying.
Right, I can understand.
The only problem, though, is that, again, this is a problem. This is an inherent problem with our systems, unfortunately. No one wants to take up the initiative.
Right.
they're happy with their jobs. They're getting money. And if they take up the initiative, there's this possibility of I don't know, they might run into issues, especially with the RTI and whatnot these days.
Mm-hmm.
People are just a bit too scared to do anything.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it turns out. I mean, so what I think.
Okay.
So anyways, whatever the reason was, no one really took it up, and then so next year was even more interesting. So I was hoping that CBSE would at least consider, the CCPD office's judgment and would make some amends to their norms and guidelines. Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing, it actually happened the other way around. IIT changed their rules, and then they came up with the same rules as CBSE.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So that was even more discouraging.
Oh my God. Hmm.
So when I actually read their guidelines, I was totally, I didn't know what to do. I was shattered, basically. I've been preparing so hard for the past 2 years, doing pretty well at my coaching center, and I was honestly hopeful of making it to the IITs. And then suddenly you come in and you say, oh, well, you cannot possibly do that because, we're not giving you any accommodations. So that was definitely very disturbing.
Wow.
But then I again took it up with the CCPD office. Nothing really helped. Finally, before these decisions actually come out. These international admission decisions come out in late March. That is when they release decisions. And so AIEEE exam, what is now called JEE mains, was supposed to be held in April. And of course, I had to play a safe game, so I basically wanted to ensure that even if I get in, there's a possibility I might not get in because it's super competitive here.
Yes.
And so I actually went to the High Court.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, well, this is the problem that I'm facing, and I am filing a case. So was that, okay, well, we were also successful in getting the early hearing. We actually so apparently there's something through which you can, just request one if the cause is such, if the ground is such. We got one which was 5 days before the JEE mains.
By
the way,
so
I already,
you went to understand. You went to the High Court, and the hearing came just 5 days before your JEE exam, is it?
Yes. Yeah. I actually made it to Stanford before then.
Oh my.
So,
God.
So it wasn't honestly, the moment I made it to Stanford, I accepted the offer because I was sure that I am going there no matter what. So it's just but then again, I didn't really withdraw the case because I wanted to make sure that at least the rules are all good, at least for people who might come in the future.
Yes, and did that help the guy you mentioned who went to Rookie? Probably these sort of efforts helped.
Yeah, the Jodhpur guy was, he actually used those new rules.
Wonderful. And Kartik, even before we miss this, what did the High Court say?
Let me complete the court story because that is even more amazing.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, sir.
So what happened at the High Court is, first of all, the first contention that the exam is only 5 days away, and so there's nothing that can be done about it, so dismiss the case.
Right.
That was the first thing, which I was expecting in any case.
Right.
Okay, well, but of course, we didn't agree to that, and so while we agree that, more logistical things like, getting an alternate question paper or embossing the dactyl diagrams would take up a lot of time, and that's not feasible at this point. But, at least changing your rules, the who can be a scribe and stuff like that is just a matter of a few seconds.
Right.
You can change the rule today and issue a press release, and that's about it.
Right.
Okay, well, yes. So they finally agreed that, this is like an interim relief.
Uh-huh.
And now the judge, in his judgment, noted that a person from class 11 science stream will be allowed as a writer.
Okay.
Now, there's a catch here.
Uh-huh.
Class 11 student, science, and the exam is being conducted on April 7th or 6th.
Uh-huh.
In India, most of the places, we start the new academic session in April 1st.
Right.
So any student who is technically a class 11 science student has been in class 11 for less than a week.
Right.
And he's basically a class 10 student, if you look at it.
Right.
And why I was requesting it was that at least he has 1 year experience with science that he can read stuff out to me.
Right.
So technically, he should be a class 12 student at that point.
Right.
So again, the purpose gets defeated.
So essentially, the helper that you would get is a class 10 student and not a 12 student, and he wouldn't get one bit of what, of course, little bit maybe, of helping you in this process.
I mean, there's a quantum jump in class 10 and 11 science, as everyone would know.
Right.
So I wouldn't really expect much from that student.
Right.
Yeah. So again, finally, then, as I told you, after the entire thing, like the media pressure and stuff like that, finally they reached out and they changed their rules, and now they're better.
Okay. Now, what made things better? What is it like right now, Kartik?
Okay, right now, I think. Well, actually, I know. Okay, so right now it's basically that there's no accommodation as far as diagrams go. The IITs and IIEE both. The IIEE actually, JEE mains, has no eligibility on the scribe. The scribe can be anything. And this is actually in accordance with a circular that was issued by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment in February, I think, 2013, which says that for written examinations, you cannot impose arbitrary eligibility conditions on the scribes. So it's absolutely fine for me to take a PhD, PhD, or even for that matter, a professor or someone as my scribe. It's for the organizing institute to strengthen their invigilation systems to ensure that I'm not cheating, rather than putting me at any sort of discomfort.
Wonderful. I think that's the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Bill 2014 introduced in Rajya Sabha. It's probably in February 2013.
That's actually a part of the bill.
Okay. Because it's kind of circular, right? So Mallikarjun Kharge, the Social Justice and Empowerment Minister, has introduced that. Seems like some important policy changes happened around that time. Okay.
Yeah. So JEE mains actually changed their guidelines in accordance with that circular. IIT still didn't do that, and claiming autonomy again. So IIT still has a class 11, though one more thing is that he has to be from science stream.
Right.
Again, the problem with class 11 potentially that might come up is that, again, you have your exam in June, and so class 11 technically means essentially class 10 as opposed to class 11.
Right. Yeah.
But it's certainly better. At least I'm happy to see that at least they realize that commerce without mathematics or humanities is not acceptable.
Exactly. Yes. Understandable. And Kartik, wonderful explanation, because I'm sure anybody who listens to this will get a sense of the difficulties and also what changes have happened after this episode has unfolded. So now, coming back to what's in store for future, right? I think I've read that you've been selected as member of UNICEF Youth Council, also in recognition to a lot of social issues that you're putting in your efforts for. So how important is this role, and what are the responsibilities you being in UNICEF Youth Council, Kartik?
I think one of the most important responsibilities for me as being a part of the Youth Council is that, first of all, I actually get to meet people who are the policymakers at the international level. Be it like, the executive director of UNICEF, be it like, so I actually happened to meet the permanent representative of India to the United Nations when I was in New York.
Wow.
And the most important thing, it's not as much about prestige associated with meeting these people as it is about conveying a message, a practical difficulty that I, as a student, faced, and letting these high administrators know what's the actual current state of affairs, so that they can take action, whatever they can, which is there within their mandate.
Right.
So I think that's like probably the most important role that I have to play, and I'm playing, being a part of this youth council. For instance, when I was at the UN, they were actually they were drafting the post-2015 development agenda, which is essentially a replacement for the Millennium Development Goals. And also, so I actually happened to read their zero draft. And I actually had a couple of points that I wanted to convey to our permanent representatives. A couple of issues that should be addressed, and also like what I think as a student or having lived in India for my almost my entire life,
Right.
the practical difficulties, and that India as a country should push for in the final deliberations when this is actually being drafted.
Okay.
So I think that's one of the most important roles. The other role is, of course, making connections. That's really, really helpful.
Right.
So not just meeting people from across the world, but also many people from India. Like I actually didn't know quite a bit of work that was happening elsewhere around the country. So meeting those people, actually investigating the possibility for getting together and doing something, because essentially our interests are pretty much the same.
Hmm.
So what you want to achieve is pretty much the same. And if you only
Right.
get together, of course, the momentum is bigger.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
So that was something else that I really have been trying to do in this capacity. Also, of course, you get to learn so much from what people have been doing elsewhere around the world, their advocacy practices, what has worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, what's happening, what conferences are happening. All of this is of course really very useful. Also, another thing is that so I was actually one of the 5 speakers who actually got an opportunity to speak. We have something known as Activate Talks, which is pretty similar to TED Talks.
Mm-hmm.
And what that helps is that you're actually getting your voice across the world, basically.
Right.
Everyone's listening to you. You're getting your message across, and well, I mean, I don't know if our ministers or bureaucrats listen to this, but if they do, then of course that's probably the best thing that can ever happen.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Interesting.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and Kartik, I'm sure many kids and students out there would get inspired and motivated by your story and also the efforts that you've been putting in. Any key inputs for them, whoever listens and whoever shares this audio file, and then let's imagine that it reached out to a bunch of folks who are looking. So any key inputs for them that can help in their whole process?
Yeah, one thing that I definitely want to say, so there's actually, I have 2 messages, one for maybe students and the other one more for, people who are in the administration and policymakers.
Yeah.
One thing for students is basically that, well, right, life is not going to be perfect always. There are going to be times when it might seem that, there's actually, I don't know where my life is heading, and it's all basically distorted. I don't know what's happening now.
Right.
And I think that's perfectly understandable. When I was there, obviously I didn't think this way. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do, and it's like a total chaos now. But one thing that I realized was that if you really think about it, and if you do not actually compromise on your passion, whatever it might be, there always is another way that you can pretty much achieve what you want to. It's just a matter of trying, exploring different avenues, and just working hard, not losing the sight of your long-term goal, basically.
Right.
And things actually just fall in place. Like so how my teacher puts it across is, if you really have the conviction that the universe conspires to make everything happen for you.
Wow. Amazing.
So that's something I think, and also for administrators, one thing that's unfortunately not happening in India is we do not really want to embrace change.
Right.
We want things to continue as they are. We're happy with whatever perks we're getting in the samosas that we get in offices. That's actually pretty good. And we're really satisfied with that. But I don't deny that satisfaction is a bad thing. It certainly is a very good thing.
Right.
But then there is something more to it. You have to be innovative. You have to think differently. You have to be much more perceptive to different people. At least try to understand what they are saying. And also, honestly, I don't think that it was... I actually can't say that it was all because of the administrators that all of this happened, whatever happened with me. It was actually, so they had no awareness.
Right.
Well, they could have told me that, we need to get some background from a few people, and then we'll get back to you.
Yes.
Which is absolutely understandable. Like there are 1,000 things in this world that I have absolutely no information about.
Right.
Now, if you ask me about defense, I have zero knowledge, and of course I'll have to research and read about it before I can give you any sort of input or whatever.
Right.
Which is absolutely understandable. But then if you behave in a way that oh, well, the fact that you're blind is your problem and not mine kind of an attitude.
Yes,
It's certainly not acceptable.
Absolutely.
So it's just that, just try to be a little more perceptive. And I guess, things are slowly shaping up. It's not all that bad. So really optimistic.
No, it is not bad, but in the end of the day, Kartik, it's about talking the realities, because, in the process of being immensely positive, in the process of being very cautious about not hurting others, I understand what sort of conversation we are having here, but essentially the truth, the messaging should be put straight, because, end of the day, we got to make sure that these lessons learned, things that we are looking at, could help potentially a bunch of other people out there. So I was really happy that you brought up all of these issues. There's immense positivity message that goes to the people out there as well. And also the difficulties in system should be brought up time and again, so that we can sensitize this issue again and again, and hopefully get to the ears of lawmakers and whoever are sitting there understanding these difficulties, right? Because when I hear one statement from you, I don't know how gamma looks like, I don't know how beta looks like. That one simple statement will essentially help sensitize a bunch of people out there, right? Nobody even realizes what is happening unless they face it firsthand, right? So I sincerely want to thank you for coming on NRI Samay, Kartik. And this messaging is very important, and this sort of conversation is very important. Of course, it is very sensitive. It is very tough to deal with it, and also tough to talk about it. We're not totally equipped and, equipped with a lot of insights into how to deal with it, but we have to deal with it no matter what. So you've done a phenomenal job explaining, everyone. So thank you so much, Kartik.
Pleasure.
Yeah. So, friends, that was Kartik Sawhney from Stanford University, California. Brilliant and bright student, and unfortunately denied a chance to sit for IIT JEE. We've discussed at length on what went on and what happened. So I sincerely appeal you to share and also help other communities out there who are dealing with similar problems, no matter where around the world. So please do share such information and also help people understand. There are tools, there are policies, there are practices, there are procedures that can help our people around us who need help. So, friends, if you like this story, do go ahead and then share this information, and also like us on Facebook, facebook.com/NRI Samay. You can also tweet, twitter.com/NRI Samay. You can also listen to all our conversations on youtube.com/NRI Samay. Do write to us any inputs, feedback, and also questions, comments. You want to talk to Kartik, you want to know more information about it, do write us at nrisamay@gmail.com. We promise you that we'll forward it to Kartik and try to get his time a little bit in his hectic schedules. Of course, he's a student, but still try to reach out to him and get some answers. Thank you so much, and you do guys have wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thank you.